Christian Horner era is finally over at Red Bull, and Red Bull raced their first race this weekend at Spa, their first race without Christian Horner at the helm. What does this mean going forward? What uncertainty is there ahead for Red Bull Racing? So the first things first, I think, what can we expect in terms of changes this weekend? Now, the immediate change isn't going to be that obvious because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in terms of, when a new boss comes in, they tend to like to bring in their own staff, but a lot of that may wait, I suspect, until the off season, until the winter months. So we may not notice certain things straight away. In terms of the background, the staffing levels and so on at Red Bull Racing, but it'll be interesting to see how the new team boss manages the engineers, and from the pit wall, is he going to be more involved? Christian Horner was more of a backseat, wasn't he? He allowed the engineers to race it to do the majority of the work in terms of prepping the racers and so on, and obviously I don't know what to expect because we've never been in this situation before in 20 years. So expect the unexpected, perhaps there. The obvious question that's going to be asked, and we won't get answers this weekend, I can assure you, but we probably won't get answers on this for, I suspect, many weeks from now. But obviously, the question isn't going away, and that's Max Verstappen, rumoured to be going to Mercedes. Certainly, Mercedes have all but confirmed there have been talks on that part. And does this change anything? Does Horner leaving? We know Horner and Max Verstappen's father, Josh Verstappen, had fallen out, or they had disagreements at least. Does that mean that suddenly he's going to stay? I'm not so sure. And I'm not so sure it'll be good for Verstappen or Red Bull. And I'll explain why. Now, firstly, Max Verstappen wants a car that's going to deliver titles. He's a 4-time world champion. Lewis is at 7. He obviously wants to get there, and he wants to have that opportunity to get there. And so he's going to look at what car is the best, or what car is the best position, particularly with the new rules coming up for 2026 to deliver him that result. Now, Horner leaving doesn't necessarily change the fact that Red Bull are presumably, or at least rumoured to be, behind Mercedes in terms of the development for the 2026 car, particularly with the engine, the Red Bull powertrain. And so he may see this as an opportunity to try to get into what could well be the best car next year. It certainly looks like it's going to have the best engine. And so this Horner sacking doesn't necessarily change that. But why this may also not be the best move for Red Bull if Verstappen stays, I think we can all agree with one thing with Red Bull, and that is it's become more like Max Verstappen racing rather than Red Bull racing. That car has been so custom designed specifically for Max Verstappen, so much so that every driver they put in the other car, in the second car, has not even been close. Now, it's not because of the level of driving or the level of drivers. You can't have 3 different drivers in there who've all shown themselves in different cars to be more than capable to come into this Red Bull car and then falling backwards and backwards down the grid. It is quite clear that this car is a very difficult car to drive if you're not Max Verstappen. Now, the way, I guess, the best analogy to spin this, to give you a clear idea of what I mean. Imagine getting a tailored suit that they measure all your arms, your legs, your insides, your legs, your chest, your waist, everything, so that suit fits absolutely perfectly on just you, and then going and giving it to your brother, your sister, your dad, your friend, who could be, a foot taller, foot shorter, wider, slimmer, etc. That is what essentially has happened here with Red Bull. They have designed that car so specifically for Max Verstappen's need that anyone else driving it is just doesn't do the job. They can try changing, certain setups and so on, but the characteristics of the car remain the same. And so, and I guess the question here is: does Red Bull want to go more towards a Max Verstappen racing, or does it want to go back more to its roots of Red Bull racing? Personally, I would like to see Red Bull going back more to its roots. Bearing in mind, 6 of the 20 drivers on the grid have come through the Red Bull development program, including previous world champions like Sebastian Vettel. And at the moment, you've got on there, obviously Max Verstappen, you've got Carlos Sainz, he came through Red Bull and Toro Rosso. You've got Yuki Tsunoda. You've got Liam Lawson. Who else I missed on there? there was like, I know I counted six. Of course, Isaac Hadjar, and let's not forget Pierre Gasly. All we remember with that, Pierre Gasly, of course, went from, and all of these, by the way, mostly tried Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, and Gasly, and Carlos Sainz, all went up from the RB visa, or what was Toro Rosso back then, up to Red Bull Racing before either dropping back down or dropping off out of the Red Bull Racing brand entirely. So I think, they obviously have an ability to bring through young drivers. The question now is that it's become so Max Verstappen racing that no one else gets a look in. And whilst Max Verstappen stays there, if he's there another 3, 4, 5 years, they may have good drivers behind them, but they're never going to get the chance because they're always having to be put into a car that's designed for Max Verstappen and try and drive something that only Max Verstappen can drive. So I think for the team's perspective, they really need to start considering, in my view, perhaps not standing in the way of Verstappen leaving and rebuilding for a new era, perhaps, and try and get some of the new drivers through. As for Christian Horner, where does he go next? Now, some are saying about Ferrari. I'm not so sure. Firstly, I'm not sure Ferrari wants to change their setup at the moment because although I know they want to win the constructors and they want to push for the drivers and so on, and I get it, but at least there's some stability there at the moment, and I don't see that changing in the near term. Of course, the other option and the other team that's been mentioned is about Alpine. This to me might seem more like a reasonable fit, not because yes, Red Bull are a much bigger team. It's a bit like in football management, going from managing Manchester United to managing Kettering Town. I get it, but hear me out for a minute. What Horner wants is he wants part ownership of a team. He wants a team that can rebuild and bring up from the bottom, pretty much like he did with Red Bull. So I can see Alpine as a fit for that. They're also not too far from his home. He wouldn't have to relocate or anything like that. So it makes more sense, frankly, for that to happen. So we'll have to see on that. And we know Alpine have got their issues, and perhaps they may see giving Horner a stake in a team in order to secure his services. Don't rule it out is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not prediction, but don't rule it out. What I would like to do, though, is find out what you think. What are your thoughts going ahead with Red Bull? Is Verstappen staying? If Verstappen was to go, by the way, who should they replace? Should they be replacing, bringing back Liam Lawson and having Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda as a pairing for Red Bull? Or do they go out and try and get, and this has been mentioned before, Oscar Piastri? And how this goes with McLaren this year could well pave that way, because if Lando Norris goes and wins the title, Oscar may feel he needs to go to another team to be able to be number one driver. And so there may be an opportunity there potentially, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. Anyway, I'd like to know what your thoughts. And as always, if you enjoy the topic of Formula One, if you enjoy watching the racing, don't forget to like and subscribe, because here we do try and stream some of the races where we can, with live data, live graphics. You can see where every driver is on the map, the timings and so on. And also, I'd also like to get your thoughts. So I want to address your comments on the channel as well. I want to address these comments directly. So please let me know what you think. And then, of course, until the next time, I'll see you all again soon.